And holding space for men is something that I felt called to talk more deeply on, because women want men to heal. However, we're not giving them a space to. And women are frustrated, but we really have to look at, the conditioning from both sides. And while women have been given a space to have emotions, right? Like given as in socially, right? Like socially allowed, socially accepted. Emotional maturity is an entirely other conversation, right? And on the other spectrum of that, we have not given men a safe place to express their feelings, right? And younger generations, right? We've created a safe place to express emotions and have feelings. And again, emotional maturity and regulation of our own emotions is an entirely different conversation than just expressing your feelings, right? So this is cultural conditioning, right? This is what we've normalized. And so we have to recognize that men have never been provided a safe place to have any emotion besides anger, right? And so as women, if we're emotionally irregulated and then you're trying to get your man to open up to you, right? You are not a safe place for him to communicate his feelings, right? He's not going to open up to you. You have to be emotionally available for him to even go down that path with you. And this is just a man who's avoiding or suppressing emotion, right? Because those are the two avenues, right, that they've been provided, is suppression or anger, right? And it's absolutely his responsibility as a human to take accountability for his own healing, right? That's absolutely his journey. If you've created a safe environment for a man to open up and you're emotionally regulated and doing your healing and he can't meet you there, that's an entirely separate conversation, right? But if you're coming from a place of emotional dysregulation within yourself, then you have to recognize what kind of environment that you're creating, right? And, most women have friendships, right, that they communicate their feelings and talk about these things, right? That's far less common for men to have those experiences, right? Or those types of connections, right? If we're the ones with emotional access, right, then it is also our responsibility, right, to look at our own emotional experience and what dynamic that we're creating with our partner, right? It is his responsibility to open up to you, right? And that's why, again, if you're trying to get him to do that, that is a misuse of energy, right? Because you're just pushing him further away and you're not making space for him to actually open up to you and even want to open up to you, right? I don't think women necessarily realize how emotionally bulldozing, that certain emotional reactions have towards men, or recognizing how truly sensitive they are. They are also sensitive beings with emotions. They were just taught to do something different with them. So if we can recognize that and stop coming from a place of trying to get them to be the way that you want them to be, right? Or emotionally communicate or minimize them for not being emotionally expressive or whatever it is, right? Those things are super damaging. And it's not creating a safe emotional environment for him to open up, right? If you're telling a story about him instead of communicating about him, that's not being emotionally available, right? You're like going around telling all your friends, my husband doesn't talk about any of that. But if you really look at your approach with him, how have you approached him with these conversations, right? How has your emotional energy been towards him when you have had deeper conversations? asking him to express his feelings. How have you responded or reacted, right, to what he said at those points, right? If you really look at your own behavior, right, and your own emotional regulation, it's a very different energy. And so, men are not going to change by trying to harass them to change, or making them feel bad, right? Or punishing them, or whatever sort of tactics, right? None of those things are safe. And again, I'm not saying that it's your responsibility to carry your man emotionally at all. It's not. But if you want him to show up emotionally, you also have to show up for him emotionally, right? And being emotional has nothing to do with being emotionally safe. Expressing your feelings has nothing to do with being emotionally safe. I mean, ideally, we want a safe place to express our emotions, right? But just expressing emotions in and of itself does not create a safe emotional space. I hope that makes sense. Because we haven't valued emotional maturity in our culture, most people don't even realize they're living from emotional dysregulation, that they're living from a state of reaction, that everything that happens to you, right, you're reacting from a place of trauma because you're in old wounding, right? And that's why doing the healing work and connecting with your own emotional state is that key to balance within yourself, emotional regulation within yourself, stability within your own being, and being able to hold space for yourself, and therefore being able to hold space for others. And most people are just living in this constant world of being triggered by whatever's happening in the environment around them. And then your partner just becomes this part of the environment you're reacting to, instead of recognizing them as an individual being with their own experience. And when you transcend the world of living in constant reaction to your environment, and you heal those wounds and self-regulation, then you're responding to your environment, right? Then you're in control of your own being, you're responding to your environment, and then you can hold space for your partner. And if they say something that's triggering, instead of some kind of emotional reaction, you can sit with that and communicate about their experience and your experience, right? Your partner is just reflecting to you, right? And you're either growing together or you're stuck in a loop, and one of you breaks the loop, and that person either breaks the loop and grows with you, or you break the loop and you're gone. Once you create a new environment within yourself, you're not going to stay in the same cycle anymore. So, emotional healing truly is, the key to your internal stability, self-control, on all levels, because our attachments are also all connected to those, emotional wounds, right? And then it also becomes the key to our relationships, right? And what kind of dynamics we're living in, what kind of dynamics we're creating in our reality. And if you're in control of your emotional state through internal health, not through suppression, right? Then that truly is the key to creating a healthy environment in your life. And it's also the key to how we can, heal collectively and make space for, men and women, and feminine and masculine, and anyone else showing up in whatever kind of way that they want to show up in the world, right? You do you, okay?